into another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. NBA free agency is upon us, and we've got some news already that we'll get into in a moment. Joining us to discuss the Celtics' least maneuverable offseason ever is Wayne Spooney and Jake Eisenberg. Guys, how we doing?
Free agency, baby. Yeah.
We're good. Brad
Fireworks.
Stevens, every year, huge news, delivers big birthday presents for myself. And I think one of the first times was, I don't know if it was with Spooney recording, but like Malcolm Brogdon was one of the presents from Brad Stevens. Like the last few years, Brad Stevens has been, don't want to talk smack about the other presents I've received from family members and friends, but he's done a really, really great job on this day.
Yeah, free agency, signing a free agent, doing a trade. There's existential joy there that no tangible item can compare to. So, I'm sure your family understands. But, I mean, what can compare to Luke Kornet re-signing, honestly?
Let's go.
Yeah.
He's back.
Yeah. And a big happy birthday, by the way, to Jake Eisenberg, who, like he just mentioned to us off air, his birthday falls on free agency every year. So the gifts, the shower of gifts come raining in from Brad Stevens on an annual basis, which you love to see. So folks in the chat and the comments, give us a shout out to Jake Eisenberg and a happy birthday. And Jake, shots on the First to the Floor credit card in Vegas in a couple of weeks' time.
Shot.
Shot. Yeah. We'll share a shot. Before we get started, we are keeping an eye on Twitter, so any free agency news that occurs during the show will be on it. Also, please like this stream, subscribe to the First to the Floor YouTube channel, and obviously, you like this channel. It boosts our numbers, helps us, attract new guests to the show. I may have said this once or twice. Brian Scalabrine does not get out of bed for less than 20,000 subs, so help us get to that number. We're nearing 5K, which is a huge milestone on the way to that scale number there. Also, check out the How About Them Celtics podcast and the Celtics Lab podcast, both beautiful podcasts run by beautiful people under the CLNS Media umbrella. If you like this show, you're going to enjoy those guys as well, so definitely check them out. And finally, check out Wayne Spooney's latest for Celtics blog, covering a wide range of potential free agent targets for this offseason, which we'll get to later in the show, but the link is in the description. You should definitely check it out. Go give that a read. Show Spooney some love. So we're going to get to league-wide news in a bit and finish up with some Celtics free agent targets, like I just said. But first, guys, Luke Kornet, the Cornish game hand, the big corn dog, cornhub.com, returns to the Celtics on a one-year deal. Spot has that estimated at a vet min, so just over $2 million for 1 year. Spooney, actually, let's go to the birthday boy first. It is your official birthday present. Thoughts on the corn dog coming back in green?
It's kind of important, man. It's firstly hilarious that like the biggest free agency news after the 6 p.m. deadline ticked over was the Luke Kornet coming back to, go back to back, help the Celtics defend the title here. Look, it's important. The big man depth is like for a regular season to help us get the number one seed and get the easiest possible path to the finals again. And Luke Kornet in the regular season was really freaking good. Oh, here he is. Yeah, we've got the dabs coming on. Yeah, no one cares about this besides Celtics fans, but like Celtics fans know that this is kind of a big deal, that the big man depth for the regular season to help us get these wins, get that one seed. And Luke Kornet, just a good regular season player at this point.
I am shocked he signed for a minimum this early in free agency. I figured he'd at least see what was out there because he's a UFA, man. There's no reason for him not to. You look at what Hartenstein, people are thinking he's going to get like 80 mil. Like he's better than Luke Kornet considerably. Is he $78 million better than Luke? I don't know. I figured he could maybe find a taxpayer mid-level out there somewhere and at least put some pressure on us to give him a little bit more. So this is just another Brad Stevens coup, man. Like this is nothing. You get charged $2 million to have an empty roster spot coming into the season. So like there's no reason not to sign him for this. It's essentially a free signing if you look at it that way. And Luke was legitimately solid, positive contributor all the way up until, the playoffs hit. And then he even gave us some solid minutes in the playoffs when we needed him in the first two rounds. So another great job by Stevens. And it's just nice having a dude come back who knows how to play basketball with this team and knows exactly what's asked of him. You don't have to worry about someone coming in complaining about minutes, like not really understanding the defense or the offensive scheme. It's like Luke knows what he needs to do. He knows he's not going to play every night, but he also knows he's going to get 30 minutes some night when KP is injured and Al's not playing a back-to-back. So I'm literally shocked he took it this quick in the off. In
no
the free
player
agency.
option.
No player option.
Maybe it's like a 2-year minimum with a player option that he could opt out of if he gets like some interest. But yeah, Ben, thoughts on your guy?
Yeah, well, I mean, there may still be some contract details to emerge, I guess, out of this, but Brad Stevens harvesting some corn during the summer, during the offseason. You love to see it, and what a harvest it is. Yeah, I apologize. Sorry. It's raining dad jokes here for the last 3 years on the podcast, ever since I became a dad. But look, continuity is a huge factor for repeating teams. And currently, as it stands, we have 12 of the 15 players we had on that championship roster, which bodes really well. And with what's going on with Kristaps Porzingis and the health concerns there, and most likely the slow ramp up with him coming back from his surgery and his rehabilitation, to have a guy, you mentioned it, Spoonie, and Jake, to have a guy who knows the system, who knows what to do on both ends. Sure, he has obvious physical limitations, hence the minimum deal and not shopping himself around the league, but he knows what's up when he's wearing green and he's on a court for Joe Mazzulla there. So very happy with that.
Yeah. Look, there's some comments in the chat. Luke is still a little polarizing, I think, because people talk about him, maybe hearing us talk about him was so glowingly, but this is in the context and the perspective of him being a minimum guy. As a third big, it is not a disaster. I think he's one of the best third bigs in the NBA. Third bigs do not play in the playoffs. Backup bigs can barely play in the playoffs. Like, the Celtics are a very rare situation where their two bigs are KP and Horford, and they can play in the playoffs. The Mavs who made the finals, Gafford was barely playable down the stretch. The Nuggets don't have a backup big. The Heat have been playing Cody Zeller as their backup big, or Thomas Bryant as their backup big. Like, who's the Bucks backup center? It's like Bobby Portis, who's like barely a 5. Like, they don't have them as a third big. He's like way overqualified for that position, and it doesn't mean anything about Tillman. I think Tillman probably has a bigger market than Kornet, and also doesn't have like the allegiance to the Celtics probably in the way that Luke Kornet felt like. Because, dude, he was out of the league pretty much. Yep. And Brad Stevens and the Celtics revitalized his career. Mm-hmm. So he probably feels like he owes a lot to the Celtics. And, like, it's like if he's not feeling confident that free agency is going to shake out a certain way, it's like, let me lock up $2 million. Like, that's a lot of money for a guy that was, like, barely in the league at that point.
Yeah, man. Like, he got basically a non-guaranteed end-of-the-season contract with us in 21, I think. And he came in that OKC game, and he, like, buried a bunch of threes. Yeah. We're like, who is this guy?
That's right.
But, yeah, you're right. I think he was sitting on free agency for a while then, completely unsigned, not playing anywhere, and then Brad picks him off the scrap heap, and he's a solid third big. I do think Tillman's better. I hope Tillman comes back. I think with KP being injured, there's minutes to go around at that center spot, and Al being another year older. And I think Tillman makes sense as a long-term Al replacement in some ways. So I hope, but I'm with you. It's a minimum contract. This has nothing, like, this doesn't change what we can offer Tillman at all in the least. Yeah. Like, we had to sign someone for a minimum contract.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think everyone necessarily appreciates just how hamstrung we are by the new CBA. Like, we're so limited. We can basically, all we can do is extend extension eligible players, which Brad has proven over the last couple of years that he will and can do at any possibility. We can re-sign unrestricted free agents to vet mins, basically only, and then we can sign free agents to vet mins as well. That's essentially all we can do as far as like filling out the roster. That and signing out our drafted rookies, which we've just done with Shireman as well. So bringing back Kornet, with the pool of free agents that are out there, including our own in Kornet, it's such a limited pool, and to be able to bring back that continuity on a relatively team-friendly deal, a very team-friendly deal, in fact, is a huge win, all things considered, I think. Moving on, though, to Sam Hauser, the sources. This is per Adam Himmelsbach, picking up Sam Hauser's $2.1 million option, and the two sides are expected to have extension negotiations after that window opens on July 9. Now, there is a good pathway here to structure a contract extension. Keith Smith was all over this on John Corrales' pod, the Locked On Celtics podcast. Basically, you can offer to Hauser either 140% of their prior salary, which was 2.1 mil, so that would come out to about 2.94 mil, or if they earned under the league's average salary, excuse me, you can offer them 140% of the league's average salary. So for Hauser, that could be up to $80 million over 4 years, so roughly $20 mil per year. So again, even though we're really hamstrung by the new CBA, due to that clause in this particular CBA, we could throw that kind of a bag at Sam Hauser and maybe lure him away from taking a bag with another team potentially. So, Spoonie, thoughts on the potential here with Hauser coming back?
Yeah, I actually, so I had an off-season primer thing, and a lot of people, I did not include the potential of us declining his option and making him a restricted free agent, because I think it would be crazy to let him hit the open market potentially, even if he's restricted, which he would have been, because I think his skill set is valuable. Like Royce O'Neal just got $40 million. I think Sam's age and what he just showed defensively in the finals, and the fact that he is one of the very best 3-point shooters in the league, means I think 4 for 80 is probably a bit rich, but I bet he commands around 60. And I think there will be teams who are very interested in giving him that type of money. He would be such a good fit in Detroit. He would be absolutely perfect for them. So I don't know where we end up on an extension. It sounds like we're interested and Sam is really interested, but it gives you a lot of stability knowing you've got, even if it's a slight underpay, like 4 for 50, and if you blow out your knee and never play again, you're still getting $50 million, where if you wait to hit free agency next year, there's always that chance. So, but I would not be shocked if we don't come to an agreement, just because it's in his best interest to get to free agency at the end of next year. But Brad is the extension king, man. So I mean, I could see it happening as well. I'm having a tough time putting my finger on a number, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really funny because like the way the Discord works. First of all, Discord, if you're not in there, get in there. It's like everyone's in different time zones, and like for whatever it was me and a couple of people trying to figure out like how much can we offer Hauser, and then I'm like, oh wait, Spoonie outlined this in the primer, and then I was also talking about how we all have to have become lawyers to figure out like why he is extension eligible not till July 9th. How much is he extension eligible? Like, I'm obsessed with the NBA, and I know as much as anyone should freaking know about contracts and stuff, and it's so freaking complicated. Spoonie's a lawyer. We got Steven in the Discord. It's like, I've done 3 years of law school, but I'm like learning through osmosis. It's like, you should know how to deal with the CBA after doing 3 years of law school. It shouldn't be that hard, dude. But yeah, so Sam Hauser, you make a great point, Spoonie, on like the injury risk. It's like, yes, and when you're an NBA player that's not unrestricted or restricted, like you're just not in a position to really negotiate or have leverage like you are when you're reaching unrestricted free agency. It's like, okay, I'm going to pick up this $2 million option, and if I have an Achilles tear, that means my next contract's going to be either another minimum or nothing. Mate, Brian Smith, you're a lawyer. Jump in the Discord, man. We need you. We need you. But like, do you risk a big injury when someone puts a contract in front of you for $50 million? Like when you've made $6 million and you have to risk like injury next year, like you kind of have to take, I don't know. I feel like you have to take that. Like Pritchard took a 4 for 30. I think he's quite different. I think that's like a win for both Pritchard and the Celtics, because Pritchard's market I don't think is quite as big. But like, you let Hauser go to restricted free agency. Orlando, even after signing KCP, they have $30 million of cap space. They could probably sign him. But you just don't know what happens with cap space between now and then, plus injury stuff. Man, good luck to like sitting at the table across from Brad Stevens while Sam is like still drunk from the parade, being like, you know what? I'm going to turn down this $50 million. I feel like they get it done.
You're muted, Ben.
Yeah, I'm muted. Yeah.
Sorry. All you remember is the click of Brad Stevens' fingers, and then you like come back to your senses and you look down at a signed piece of paper and you're like, I don't even know what happened. And your agent's just smiling at you blankly. First of all, we're about to have an influx of number nerds into, join the existing pool of number nerds in the Discord, which you're all welcome, by the way, number nerds and common folk like myself. Please join the Discord. We'd love to have you. So Sam Hauser, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But we know that he's coming back this year on that same $2.1 million deal, which is for the upcoming year, obviously a great chunk of change from everyone's perspective. And we've got some maneuverability there as far as money we can throw at him if he is tempted to go elsewhere, which is, I think, great long term. Moving on, the Celtics have tendered, this is from Keith Smith yesterday. So 2 bits of news here, one from yesterday, an update from today. Firstly, the Boston Celtics have tendered qualifying offers to Neemias Queta and Drew Peterson, and both players are now restricted free agents. Boston did not tender a qualifying offer to JD Davison, which is interesting. He will be an unrestricted free agent. But then today, an update from Shams. Free agent big man Neemias Queta has agreed on a multi-year deal to stay with the Boston Celtics, which, depending on how you feel about the 4th center spot, and Neemias Queta and his potential to play maybe above Kornet, for example, in the rotation, maybe mixed feelings. I think for me, just again, going back to that continuity, like bring the boys back, right? Bring the whole team back this year. They want to chip together. I know Neemias Queta didn't get a guaranteed deal until later in the year, but he is part of that continuity. He is familiar with the system. And while we're a little thin at the center spot, at least in the beginning months of the season, I think to have some of that continuity around brought back again is, if nothing else, useful, and we're looking for cheap, re-signable players, and that's, if nothing else, what Neemias Queta is to us, Jake. What do you reckon?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. Yeah.
I'm the,
yeah, hell yeah.
I'm the Queta guy in a negative. Eric Weiss tweeted at me today, "Suck it, Jake Eisenberg." After we re-signed Queta. He has shown enough where this is, again, fine. I think you want to create, you want to diversify your portfolio when it comes to the Celtics big man rotation. You've got Luke Kornet. That's the S&P 500. That's an innings eater. That's not going to give you the big returns, but you're also not going to be broke and living in your car with the Luke Kornet experience. Queta, he's a little, he's a Tesla.
Tech stock, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. You might have a good road trip, and play really well against Sacramento and the Clippers, and your net rating is going to look really good for 2 weeks. But then, then he might try and play in a couple other games, and you may have wished that you had sold your Queta stock at that point right there, and now you're just holding on to your Queta stock. You re-sign him. You see the potential. He's got the tools. He could take you to the moon, but maybe not. But again, it's fine to have that type of player, I think, signed.
Yeah, I think the fact that, especially if Tillman comes back, I'm totally fine with this, because if Tillman doesn't come back, I feel like we maybe need somebody who's a little more proven in that 4th center spot. But I agree with you, Jake. I think Queta did enough to show there's at least something there with him, and I think I'm a little lower than the fan base on lower on him than the fan base, but he's got some talent, man. He's athletic. He's friggin' huge. And he occasionally flashed a little passing chops, which I find interesting. So bring him back, have him get more comfortable, bed into the system. And yeah, he is a different player than Luke, which I think is a good thing. So we'll see. I have no problem with bringing him back at what I assume will be a minimum, probably non-guaranteed too, which is like zero risk essentially. Like, why not? And he's still pretty young. I think he's 24. So yeah, fine. Totally fine with Queta coming back.
He's an extremely adequate 4th center who can occasionally bump himself up to that 3rd center spot, which is that's essentially what it is. And for that, it's completely fine. Well done.
I will say, I know people there are a faction, shout out RJ Johnson, that are very excited about this. Like there's a big Queta hive within Celtics fandom who believe that he can be a Robert Williams. I don't even want to say it. I don't even want to say it because that's just so ridiculous that would ever be an option. But he does give you that athletic pop in a way that clearly Luke Kornet doesn't. Even Tillman doesn't either. And so who knows? He figures it out. If he can just become solid defensively and really settle down on that end, his athleticism does give the Celtics a wrinkle in the big man rotation that they do not have right now.
Yeah, his ceiling is like Mitchell Robinson. I feel like top ceiling. Outcome is like Mitchell Robinson. He's kind of that type of player, and the athleticism's tantalizing. So I get it. Yeah, worth keeping around.
Totally. So that leaves Xavier Tillman. We're not sure what's going to happen there, as well as, and we've got a little bit more certainty around these two situations, the Derrick White extension and the Jason Tatum record-setting extension, which really it could be announced at any moment now. I guess given total certainty around Tatum, relative certainty around Derrick White, and then really no idea what's going on with Tillman, what's the most intriguing out of those points, guys, for you?
I want to ask you, Spoonie, relative certainty around Derrick White. I'm getting spooked by all of the crazy money that's getting thrown around in free agency. But then we'll talk about KCP and how he just got like 22 million annual salary. But Spoonie, I'm like a little spooked about D White.
Yeah, so on Derrick, the most we can offer him is 140% of the last year of his contract. So not this year's salary, next year's salary, which I think brings him up, depending on his bonuses, to like 32 to 33, maybe 34 a year is what we can offer him. So that's a shitload of money. The max contract, I think, is like going to be 45, something around there. So there's still a pretty sizable difference if someone is willing to pay Derrick White the max or get near to the max. And especially when you're taking 8% bonuses off all those numbers, that number just keeps expanding. The starting AAV difference is, getting around 10 million, maybe a little more. Then it keeps getting wider and wider. So if he thinks he could get more than 30 million, 32 million a year, he's going to try it, I think, because I think he's kind of injury proof. Like if he gets hurt, teams are going to still be willing to pay Derrick White. I think because he's just got a longer track record of success, unlike Sam Hauser. But I just can't see Derrick leaving. I feel like it's going to be $120 million. Like that's lifetime setup. Your world is good. All your kids are fine. Their kids are fine. And look, he just won a title. We love him. He's like super appreciated. But I think that's probably under his market value.
It is under his market value. But again, this new CBA is really creating uncertainty, it feels like, in the market. And it depends on your situation and how much leverage you have over your team. Like OG Anunoby, for example, people will be like, well, if OG Anunoby is getting 42 million, 5 years, 212 million, then what is Derrick White worth? The Knicks just had no leverage whatsoever. They had to give him every last cent because they just went all in on the Mikal Bridges trade. And like to go all in and then not sign OG Anunoby would be like a freaking disaster after also giving up quickly and RJ Barrett in the OG deal. And then you contrast that with like KCP getting 22 million. Like, are you telling me OG Anunoby and KCP are a $20 million difference? Like they're both role players. KCP's proven to be far more durable on two different title teams that have won the title. So like, it's really hard to project which teams are going to have cap space next year because that would make this kind of conversation easier. It's like, are the cap space teams Orlando, there's this year, Detroit, basically teams that like it doesn't make sense for Derrick to go to, then it makes, the negotiation easier. If there's going to be like he could go to Denver. You name teams that have like better situations, which is not going to be one because Denver's already screwed. But like that makes more sense. So it's hard to project exactly what his market's going to be the following year.
Yeah,
I'm with you though, Spoonie, man. Turning down again, coming back to that meeting with Brad Stevens where he puts down a $120 million contract in front of you for a guy that like, if you watch the All In little documentary, I think episode 3, where like the first 5 minutes, it's just like Derrick White playing in a beautiful house in Boston with his kid shooting in the backyard it's like, he's like, what does he care about making 30 million versus 40 million? I'm not sure he's the type of guy. James Harden strikes me as the type of guy that would really care about that type of thing. And not to mention, he's getting the Sam Adams money now. Like he is.
That's true.
Mr. Sam Adams now. Cue the duck boats.
Yeah. Real quick on Derrick, though. If we don't come to an extension with him, we still can re-sign him with bird rights at the end of the next season. And we could technically offer him the max if we wanted to then. So, like, all's not lost. Like, don't freak out if we don't come to an extension. It would be great. I would much prefer we do. And it's nice because we're like, well, this is all we can offer, Derrick. Sorry, buddy. So you can kind of, like, leverage cheaper contracts with that that artificial limitation. But we still can bring him back even if he doesn't get the extension done. And thank you, APB, for the donation.
Hell yeah.
You can knee me back. Good vibes all around. Damn right.
Yeah, absolutely. A comment on vibes. Does Richard White let Derrick leave? Like, does he just dispel any sort of thoughts in his mind of potentially leaving Boston, given everything that's happened and the history there with Richard White in the city of Boston? It just seems unlikely. It seems like there's more chance. That's why I say with relative certainty that we'll get something done, if not now, then before he has a chance to take off elsewhere in Derrick White's case. Tatum as well, obviously extremely likely, I would say with 110% certainty.
Yeah.
Tillman is more of an area of a concern for me because we do need like spot starter minutes at the center spot in those first few months of the season. Obviously, we've got Al Horford. He'll be 39 next season. We do need an extra set of legs there who's like starter quality from a center perspective. Sure, Kornet has shown flashes, but not really enough to give you confidence to like keep at that sort of 1 to 3 seed level in those first few months of the season. Whereas Tillman, I think he's just more of a starting caliber quality player. I'd have a lot more confidence in those early months knowing that Tillman was either starting or coming off the bench for Al. So really curious to see what's happened there. Keeping a close eye on Twitter as we just see that Jonas Valanciunas has agreed to a deal with the Wizards, which we'll get to all the league-wide stuff in a second. But anything, guys, on Tillman or anything else regarding the Celtics before we move on to the league-wide stuff?
I expect Tillman to take a little longer because he's going to want to really see what he can get out there. But I will say, like, you're kind of screwed if you're a Tillman level player because so many teams don't have access to any of the mid-level exceptions anymore. Like the good teams you want to go to don't have any mid-level exception. And then there's a lot of teams who don't have the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, and they, I think, reduced how much the taxpayer mid-level exception is. It's only $5 million. I think it was like 6.5 last year. So, and we have his bird rights. We can easily beat that $5 million a year. We could give him 7 like that. Boom, it's done. I don't know if one of those cap space teams is going to be willing to eat up cap space on a player of like Tillman's level. So I think he's going to really wait this out, but I expect him to be back. I think we'd be willing to give him a decent contract, like, 3 for 27, like similar to Pritchard or something like that.
Anton Watson, is that your music?
Yes, they're like the same age.
And I'm trying to find Anton Watson's wingspan really quickly right here, but they're like very similarly sized. As far as like playing, he's more of a 4, but I think he could probably play small ball 5. That's asking a lot, probably. I do have one more Celtics thing.
Please. A
potential trade. I know we can't do a lot. There's one guy if you want to play in the trade machine, it's Jaden Springer.
Yep.
And because he makes $4 million, you can trade with anyone down and attach picks to make that trade happen. Here we go. Jaden Springer for Duop Reith of the Portland Trailblazers. They just drafted Donovan. I mean, is it Klingon? What's his first name? Donovan Klingon. Donovan Klingon. They have Ayton. They have Robert Williams. What do they need Duop Reith for? Jaden Springer for Duop Reith plus a second-round pick. That's $2 million in savings as well. And like Duop Reith shot 36% on threes last year, 7.3 attempts per 36 minutes. Like he gets them up too, and I think he's like would be probably immediately the third best big. Maybe him and Tillman would be tight. But I think that's something. Something.
Go ahead.
Definitely
He's
something.
An Aussie.
Yeah, notable Australian. That's all I was going to add.
Too.
Yeah, I mean, we know he's a backup big of maybe a higher than above average quality for like deep backup bigs. And in that sense, compared to what we're expecting Springer to give us, and I know there's some high upside-ish potential with Springer and that he could be, if he learns offense, a really dynamic defensive guard. But it's a tall order given what this specific team's trajectory is to have any dependency on that short-term improvement with Jaden Springer. Therefore, I tend to think that what Duop can give us now is definitely a higher benefit to the Celtics. So I'll make that trade in a second. What do you think, Speedy?
Yeah, I would trade Springer. Yeah, not even a question. I would trade Springer. I like Reith. I think Tillman's a good step better than him. I think Reith's shooting makes him a more interesting long-term prospect than Tillman, but his defense worries me. That Blazers team was a complete shit show, though, so it's hard to like judge an individual player's defense when you're playing for that Blazers team. Springer is he's a contract to me right now until he shows he can do anything on the offensive side of the ball. And frankly, his defense was solid. I wasn't like, holy shit, this guy's the next Marcus Smart or anything on defense.
Exactly.
So he's got a long way to go. So it is Springer trade machine time right now, man. Because that I absolutely think we can upgrade. We still have some picks we can move. It's just tough to find low salaries who are worth it. But I would be totally down for a Reith pickup, especially if Tillman goes, and we truly need depth there.
Truly a spicy trade idea. I hope Brad Stevens is listening. Get it done, Brad and co.
Big fan of the show.
Anything else on the Celtics side of things before we get to an ad read here?
Oh, good.
All right, time to pay the bills. First of the floor is brought to you by Game Time. If I were lucky enough to be in Boston right now, I'd be filling the void left by the end of the NBA season by getting into the Red Sox and the MLB. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. I'll be in Las Vegas this July for the NBA Summer League, and I've noticed so far as I look to buy tickets that the best deals are clearly available on the Game Time app. You can take advantage of all the great Game Time features such as last-minute tickets, flash deals, and zone deals. Easy to find and buy MLB tickets for every kind of event in your area. You can preview views from all the seats in the venue, plus lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Guys, news around the league. Where do you want to start?
Well, okay, we've basically got confirmation that Paul George is going to the Sixers at this point. It's all but like been fully like he's going. So we've got the Clippers have already put out a statement saying that Paul George is gone and that we had a great 5 years and the Magic can't sign him now. He's not going to like the Pistons. The Sixers are the only place that he can go. The 76ers are strong front runners to land Paul George as a free agent deal, telling ESPN, and that's from Woj. He's just waiting so he can announce it on his podcast tomorrow. That's just that's just all that's happening. So that's pretty much a guarantee, and that's like the biggest free agent signing that we're going to have. We'll start there. I don't know. Thoughts?
Ben, go ahead.
Well, he's apparently also... sorry, I cut you guys off playing with my sound mixing board here, so I assume we are talking about Paul George, who's also
Correct.
interviewing with the Clippers and the Magic. Some news did come out recently that he has scratched the Clippers from his list, so I believe it's down to the Magic and the Clippers, and the Sixers. And you add in the fact that he's just followed, was it Embiid's wife on Twitter? I think.
So yeah, I think Ben,
you can read the tea leaves there.
You missed when you cut us off. Like Woj has basically tweeted that it's pretty much a guarantee.
It's done and dusted.
Sixers. Yeah, it's gone to the Sixers.
Yeah, and so the reason that this is at the top of our list is because it's by far the most concerning as it pertains to impacting the Celtics' chances of winning a title again next year. And if you look at what's been one of the main causes for Joel Embiid's diminished returns as the season progresses throughout each of the last few seasons, it's been just a huge offensive load and somewhat a defensive load on him as that season progresses. So to bring in an astute, dynamic offensive wing like Paul George to take some of that pressure off, as well as just fit in basketball-wise with Joel Embiid and give him like a kick-out option and someone to pull defensive focus away from Embiid, that's pretty terrifying as you look for ways for the ultimate demise of the Sixers to come about, which is one of my fantasies every single NBA season. So it's troubling because it makes them significantly better no matter how you slice it. That said, Paul George has kind of found a way to shit the bed many seasons past, time and time again. So in that sense, I guess he also fits in really well with the Sixers too, Spoony.
Okay. Yes, he absolutely fits in with the Sixers in that sense. And like Paul George is used to hooping in the playoffs with his running mate injured, so he will fit right in with the Sixers in that way too.
Yep.
He was not efficient at all in the playoffs this year. He had a 55% true shooting. I guess that's whatever. He was efficient in the regular season. He's old. Like he is, I think, 34, about to be 35 coming into this next season. Yeah. He has had a lot of injury problems, and I think you can kind of start to see it in his game. Like he used to be completely like dynamic athletically, and now it's like all guile and like pull up threes. I think this could be a friggin' disaster for the Sixers because they're giving him 4 years too. Like they will get a good year out of him next year. After that, I don't know what's going to happen with Paul George. He could basically be unplayable in the last 2 years of this contract, but he's definitely a wing upgrade from Nick Batum. But Paul George is like, people compared Tatum to him, basically being like, oh, he's a playoff dropper. He's like Paul George. It's like, is that the guy you want to, have your second best player be? Probably not, especially when your best player is noted playoff dropper Joel Embiid. So are they better than they were yesterday? Yes. Does this terrify me for the playoffs? Not really, honestly, to tell you the truth. And I think this could go sideways very, very badly for the Sixers. And I hope it does, frankly.
So worth noting, and apologies if I cut myself off from this part of the conversation as well, but they've also just signed Andre Drummond to a 2-year, $10 million deal, as well as Eric Gordon. I don't have the specifics on the Eric Gordon deal. So first of all, like Jake, thoughts on those additions along with Paul George? And then how does that affect their ability to bring back guys like Kelly Oubre and Nick Batum?
So I was listening to the Ball stream before I hopped on here. And so like they've just been talking about it. So I was getting kind of the mechanics of the Sixers stuff. And Batum has already kind of been reported as gone by a Houston guy that we're not 100% sure on, but it feels like, but also bringing in Drummond and then signing Eric Gordon kind of signals that Oubre and Batum are almost certainly both gone. I guess the way I would look at it is go back to the series that the Celtics played against the Sixers where it was Harden, Maxey, Embiid versus that version of the Celtics. And how different is this version of the Sixers and that version of the Sixers? Because Harden is a better player than Paul George at this point. He was better than Paul George this year. Defensively, Paul George is obviously better. Maybe you like that from a wing perspective. Maxey's improvement from a creator compared to that Celtics series. He's taken a legitimate leap. Obviously, this makes the Sixers better in a vacuum. But man, does it not tick some of the classic Sixers bad vibes boxes? Like the podcast P stuff is just going to be a gold mine. Like he's going to be hopping on this podcast talking absolute nonsense. Ben Golliver, a friend of the pod, calls him loose lips P as well. Like he just
that's a lot to unpack there.
He says the quiet part loud all the time. Like when he did that podcast recently and he talked about how he was complaining about how like you brought in James Harden and he said, yeah, but that kind of screwed up how we, our role players, and it's not James's fault, but we lost the guys that we traded Harden for, and that meant that me and Kawhi had to do all the dirty work. One, complaining about having to do the dirty work is hilarious when you're like supposedly trying to like win a freaking title, when you're comparing him to Jason Tatum, who like is a rebounding god at the same position, willing to do literally all of the dirty things. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, all of the dirty things, I should emphasize. It's just, and like there was that tweet about, Jason Tatum being the Michael Jordan of Tobias Harris's. Paul George might actually be the Michael Jordan of Tobias Harris's, and that fits perfectly on Philly. Like, I can see it now, man. He's going to be getting booed at halftime in like November when they're losing a random game, probably to the Celtics or another team. And yeah, man, that's a lot of money to be committing to a guy that's had a ton of injury problems going into his age 35 season when you already add, you've got a ton of injury concerns with Embiid as well. It's like, do you not want to create a team that can sustain injuries to Embiid when it's like, what are the chances both of those guys are out at the same time? I don't know. It ticks a lot of Sixers bad vibes boxes for me.
Well, yeah, I mean, do you get the sense that the Sixers are like, fuck, okay, Embiid is getting older here. He's going to be, I think, 31 in this upcoming season. We just have to do something with the tools that are available. We've got that cap space. Who's available? Paul George is shaking loose. Okay, I guess that's our guy by default. Like, do you get a sense they're just kind of playing that card because they kind of have to and it's all they've got?
They have to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Paul George is really good. Like, he is really, really good. He's one of the 20 best players in the league, probably 25 best players in the league. I would just be super concerned if I was a Sixers fan. Like, he's going to hit a wall and just be bad at some point. Like, Father Time is undefeated. And with the injury issues, like, it could be a terrifying contract at some point. They better win a title in the next like 2 years, I guess is what I'm getting at. It's like it puts such a right. If you're Philly,
those guys,
it just puts a really short clock on Embiid's prime yet again. Like they did it again, like what they did with Harden. So, and like Oubre was really good for them. And I know like I'm not going to sit here and be like they shouldn't have got Paul George so they could get Oubre back.
Same with Batum though.
Yeah, and they don't have Oubre's bird rights. And they have to use cap space to give him a contract above the minimum or an exception. And I think they used up most of their cap space on Paul George, so he's gone. And I know you said that, Jake, he's probably gone, but like I don't see how they retain him unless he just gets no offers in free agency. But I think he was good enough to at least command a mid-level exception somewhere. So maybe they could bring him back for their MLE. We'll see. But they're better. They're definitely better. Paul George is really good. He's going to have some games where he has like 35, 7, and 6, and everybody's be like, see. But it's like, we'll see it in the playoffs, man. Like, we'll see after you grind out a bunch of games in the regular season, what you've got left in the second and third round of the playoffs. And that's what would worry me if I was a Sixers fan.
This is similar to the conversation I had with Eric about the Knicks. It's like, it's two lenses. One, the Sixers are objectively better with Paul George than they were 10 minutes ago than without him. And like, that makes them a fringe contender, I'll say. Tier 2. But when you contrast it again, can they beat the Celtics? That's a different conversation. And it's obviously a Celtics podcast. So we're going to think about it in that way. Sixers have to make this move, but it's like the leap that Jaylen Brown has taken, the leap that Jason Tatum has taken as a playmaker, and the improvements he's probably going to make as a 26-year-old still in the NBA. He's 8 years younger than Paul George. Is insane, right? So it's like, think about it. It's like 8 years from now, Tatum's like way better than Paul George ever was. And it's like, Tatum's probably going to be up for a $500 million contract the way that the cap's going up. But compared to the Celtics, it's just not really a problem. I think Paul George is going to have like the worst time of his life playing against the Celtics, and they can bring out all of his worst podcast P tendencies in a playoff series.
Hell yeah. Well, let's bring a few more teams into the fold here. We had Brad Turner from the LA Times tweeting, sources, Klay Thompson is intrigued about playing with the Los Angeles Lakers and LeBron James, provided he re-signs with the Lakers. Thompson plans on talking with the Lakers as well as Dallas. And then Woj later confirmed that Golden State will not re-sign Klay Thompson. Meanwhile, what is going on in Denver? KCP to the Magic. 3 years, 66 mil. So Denver, I've heard potential for them to bring on Klay Thompson as well. KCP's out. He's gone to the Magic. The Lakers clearly doing their annual thing of trying to bring in whatever free agents want to play and live in Los Angeles, which presumably is many, many people. I guess to start with, what's going on in Denver? Because similar to like we were just kind of laughing at the Sixers potentially mismanaging the situation around Embiid, Denver have the best player in the league in Nikola Jokic, having good defensive, rangy shooting wings to surround Jokic with is clearly paramount to their success, and they've just let a very good one walk out the door. Apparently, there was some conversation with Denver and KCP, and I'm somewhat speculating here around trying to re-sign him. I think there was one less year offered to KCP, if what I'm reading is accurate, and that was ultimately the tipping point for KCP leaving to Orlando. But Denver fans, Jake, have got to be pretty disappointed here with letting quite a big fish back into the sea.
This is maybe the biggest win for the Celtics out of anything, because I still view Denver personally as like the main threat. Obviously, them being in the West changes things, as we saw this year. Like, there's no guarantee you see them at all just because they got to get out of the conference. But like, that's the one team the Celtics didn't feel like they had like a matchup answer for. One team where the Celtics are a bad matchup for like everyone, except for Denver, I feel like. And all the numbers suggest that Denver needs those 5 guys to be the Denver Nugget machine that they were over the last couple of years. And that's Jokic, Murray, Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, KCP. This is a disaster for the Denver Nuggets. The fact that they weren't willing to pay $23-24 million for a KCP because of the second apron, look at what the Celtics are doing. Look at what Wick Grossbeck is willing to do. Also, the Nuggets are owned by the Cronkies. They've got infinity money. Like, they're like one of the richest ownership groups. They can afford to do this, and they just were not willing to. This, like, I compare it to the Celtics, right? The Nuggets are still going to be a threat to win a title because they've got Jokic and Murray. But, like, if the Celtics lost Derrick or Drew, they would still be maybe the favorites to win the title. But it completely lowers your floor and lowers your ceiling by taking one of those guys out of your rotation. Now, Christian Braun is a starter. He's not a starter on a championship team, man. And then who's playing the Christian Brown minutes? Brown, I just said both in the last 2 sentences. But like, this is a disaster for them. Great fit for the Magic, but KCP won 2 titles around LeBron and Jokic. Elite creators, and the Magic are still very devoid of playmakers.
Yeah, and I will say, I want to put this on record. Fuck you, Christian Brown. Your name is Braun, dude. Like, what do you do? It is not pronounced Brown, okay? KCP, average volume, 40% 3-point shooter, great guard defender. It feels like a lot of championship teams have this sort of like brain drain that slowly happens. It happened to Milwaukee too, where it's like individually these guys slowly get chipped away from your roster. And it's never one guy where you're like, oh, they're totally screwed. That's it. But then you look around and it's like, holy shit, the only guys who are still here from the championship team is our stars. It's like Middleton and Giannis are like the only two guys on Milwaukee. All of a sudden you're kicking to Jay Crowder in the corner after you traded 5 for second round picks for him. You're like, what happened? And I feel like that's absolutely what's happening to Denver. First it's Brown, Brown.
Oh, yeah.
And then now it's KCP. And it's like, so you went from Bruce Brown being your sixth man off the bench to Christian Brown being a starter in 2 years. That's you said it, Jake. That's a disaster. Like, that is a massive talent cliff you are falling off right now. And the fact they didn't match this contract for him is just crazy to me. But what a great fit for Orlando. Like, I don't know if he's going to be great for them, because you're right, Jake. Like, Franz Wagner is like probably their best playmaker, and he's great for a forward, but he is not Jokic by any means. But he can play defense and he can shoot threes. I think he fits that team really well, at least theoretically. So great pickup for Orlando.
Now, folks, hit that like button. There's a bunch of you here through various streaming options. If you're on Twitter, first of all, come on over to the First of the Fall YouTube channel. If you all come over here, and if everyone in their respective channel hits that like button right now, that's going to help every single channel out a great deal. So please do that and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, guys, in the interest of time, let me rattle off a few other items of free agency news, and you guys can tell me what's most intriguing to you. So Sam Quinn of CBS Sports had that the Phoenix Suns set to have the NBA's first $500 million payroll in 2026 after re-signing Royce O'Neal, household name, DeJounte Murray to the Pelicans for more than what the Hawks paid for him, I think. Valanciunas to the Wizards. Chris Paul waived and just signing with the Spurs on an $11 million contract for a single year. We talked about Drummond to the Sixers. Which of the above, I guess, intrigues you most as a Celtics fan?
I was pure like CP3 to the Spurs. Did you say that one? I think that's incredibly interesting. I don't think that's like massive for the title chase this year, but I think it's really interesting from like a NBA history perspective. Chris Paul has like bounced around, and everywhere he's gone, the teams that he's been on have won. He's been a great leader. Like, it reminds me of when he went to OKC from the Clippers, and they were kind of like thinking that maybe they were going to tank or he was going to go home, but then he ended up leading them to the playoffs when Shea was still really young. They ran 3 guard lineups with Schroeder, Celtics legend. And I think it's really cool, like, that the Spurs desperately needed like someone that could just play point guard, and they just got, and obviously later in his career, one of the best point guards in NBA history. And I think that even if he's playing 20, 25 minutes a night, I think that's going to be awesome for Wemby, and might make them just like way more watchable on a night-to-night basis from a league pass perspective. So sure. I personally like that. I'm not someone who's worried about Wemby taking over the league anytime soon. Like, your team needs to be so freaking good. I don't care who you are. Like LeBron, Kareem, you name the player. Like, you need a real team to actually win a title and be good. So I just think it's a fun deal.
Drummond to the Sixers. He was on the Sixers, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
That's right.
And I said when we were talking about Oubre, maybe they'll bring him back for the mid-level exception. Never mind. Drummond got it. That 2 for 10 is what the mid-level exception is, $5 million a year. So you just going back to that I guess, Philly, with him 2 years older. That's bizarre. But I think the strangest one to me is Valanciunas went to the Wizards. I just I get paid, big fella, I guess. But man, it seems like at his point in his career, I feel like he would want to take a little bit less money to find somewhere he can win, but maybe those offers just aren't really out there with the new CBA and mid-level exceptions being in such a weird place now. But I just why Washington? Why did they sign him? He's 28? Like, what are you doing?
I was wondering if that's a trade contract. It's like, we'll sign you for $10 million
Very
annual,
tradable.
and then someone like the Lakers or fringe contenders like, oh, we have a contract at 12 mil and we need like a big man. It's like 10 mil is like kind of easy to get to, right? So I'm wondering if that's the best money he could get, and the Wizards are like, oh, we can move this easily, and he's not going to really he's not helping us get out of the bottom 5 worst record in the NBA.
And I guess one thing is you have to spend 90% of the cap before the season starts now under the new CBA, so it like helps them get up there. But the trade thing, they said that about Kuzma. He's still in Washington, you know? So I don't know what the hell they're doing, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, evergreen statement. DeJounte Murray exiting the conference, I think, is cool. Just given it's only one game, but we played the Hawks for one of those games in Atlanta last year, and DeJounte Murray hit a bunch of clutch shots on us and beat us while we were testing KP's limits as a switchy big, which I think we all realized at that point in the season was not a long-term strategy. But I'll forever hate DeJounte Murray for that moment in time. So I'm glad to see him exit and go west again, which is great to see.
The Hawks made a freaking documentary about that comeback against the Celtics, and like
you got to put the content team to work on something.
I want to go back because there was like a fan video that went around where it was like a Celtics fan and a Hawks fan talking shit to each other, and the Hawks fan's like, "There's no parade yet. There's no parade yet," and I'm like, I want to go back and find that and be like, we had the parade.
We had the parade. It was great. Yeah, absolutely. Now, we are going to come back in a moment and talk about some spicy free agent options. It might be the most fun part of the podcast if you haven't been having an amazing amount of fun already. So stick around for that. But first, Spoonie, we've got to pay the bills with this Prize Picks ad read.
Let's do it. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in early on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. With the finals over, the hoops action doesn't stop on Prize Picks. Women's basketball is still heating up, with stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese looking to make names for themselves alongside greats like Breanna Stewart and Aja Wilson. You could win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. Prize Picks makes it so easy to jump into the fun. I just saw a video of Caitlin Clark's teammates being unable to catch her passes, so I'll definitely be hammering Clark less on assists as I try to best Jake in the first of the floor Prize Picks competition. And Prize Picks, it can even manage to make baseball interesting. So download Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
So good. What a pro. What a pro. Well done, Spoonie.
I can read, baby.
You can read so well. You can also write very well. And I mentioned it up the top of the show, but Spoonie's just done a really excellent free agent primer for Celtics blog. The link is in the description, so definitely check it out. And we're going to use that as the basis for this discussion. But Jake and folks in the chat, please feel free to throw other names out there. I might start with a name just to get the conversation going, and we can just build out from there. We can loosely stick to the run sheet here, but a man close to my heart, Daniel Tice, a potential free agent signing for the Celtics, obviously on a vet min deal. Where does he slot in our current big rankings is maybe the best way to evaluate that potential signing. Spoonie, you've written the article, so we'll lean on your expertise here. Where does he slot in if we do hypothetically sign Daniel Tice as far as the talent rankings of our big rotation?
So to me, this only makes sense if Tillman walks. I don't know if he's better than Tillman. He shot the 3 really well last year. He shot 37% on, low volume, but that's fine. He's a little bit better than Tillman offensively, but he is better than Tillman offensively, I should say. I don't think he's as good as Tillman defensively, and I think there's a decent gap between them now because Tice has just kind of lost the step, and he's not the rim protector he used to be. He's lost some athleticism with age, but if Tillman's gone, I think he's clearly. Is he better than Kornet? I don't know, Jake. Do you think he's better than Kornet?
It's hard. I got to see him in the system. Because I feel like he hasn't looked the same away from the Celtics. He didn't look the same. I thought he had some moments with the Clippers from what I saw at times. I think, again, it would just be another capable guy that can be in the right spots, but don't feel awesome about him playing in the playoffs. Whereas I know Tillman has one thing that he can do well in the playoffs and play defense. I'm not sure what Tice is giving you. no one's guarding Tice at the 3-point line in a playoff series. He might make the other team pay and you get lucky and he hits 2 for 3 from 3 in a playoff game. But he'll be fine. But I think he's probably a little bit past it at this point.
Oh yeah.
But but again, it'd be fine. Compared to some other guys, it'd be okay. My guy is Dario Saric, which I mean, I don't know how different he is to Daniel Tice at this point, but I think he's a little younger, a little more spry, and I know he likes to play the 4 a little bit, but you could play him, I think, in the Celtics rotation. Defensively, he's not awesome, but again, these are minimum guys. This is the reality of what we're going to be able to find at this position. So I like Saric. I think he's a pretty legit offensive player.
Versatile as well, like because our wing depth is pretty shallow, and he could be at least defensively a little wing-ish. As I say that out loud, I'm like maybe not, but like he is kind of that like wing/big hybrid in that sense. And like with our wing depth, it's the Jays and Sam Hauser, and then if there's an injury there, we're pretty limited from the wing perspective. So size-wise, at least someone like Dario Saric, who can shoot at a decent clip from 3 as well. I'll stop short of saying he can move his feet defensively, but at that point of the depth chart, yeah, Dario Saric, Super Dario, could definitely be effective.
I love Dario. I didn't include him just because I think he might get a mid-level exception. He was pretty good last year, and he shot it really well. And he's a good offensive player. Like, he can kind of a dribble pass shoot guy that can play the 5. So I absolutely love Dario. He would be probably my number 1 target if we can lock him up for a minimum. Like, I think he's just a really good basketball player, and I think he was on a minimum last year with Golden State, right? So it's not out of the realm of possibility.
I mean,
I'll throw a couple of names out there, and yeah, these are poached from your list, Spoonie. I feel like this is one of those ones where you need to take like a huge joint rip, like, wait, hang on, I got one. Gordon Hayward, which.
Oh boy.
Yes, oh boy is right. Like he clearly played his way out of favor from anyone's perspective as far as like what he could give you on the court. So maybe we can start with the narrative aspect. Obviously, he's got the history with Brad Stevens, who sure is now upstairs in the front office, but unfinished business with Brad and to a lesser degree the Celtics there. And then again, I talk about that wing depth. He's coming back, I assume, here with a renewed mentality, a renewed focus about where he sits rightfully in that depth chart. He's clearly the wing playing behind even Sam Hauser at this point. If he can come in with that mentality, with that no to Gordon Hayward. We're seeing a lot of no's in the chat here. Rightfully so. So.
Come on.
It is slim pickings out there. And I think, Gordon Hayward is someone that you have to consider given, again, that shallowish wing depth, given his previous history with the team and with Brad Stevens, and given that you've got really fuck all other options out there. So yeah, you do have to consider him for that alone.
Why are people so against Gordon Hayward in the chat? He shot 41% from 3.
He was pretty shit last year. Let's just call a spade a spade.
Yeah, but he was shit compared to what we expect from Gordon Hayward.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
Like,
yes,
he's not that guy anymore. But if he's the second wing off the bench behind Sam Hauser, and I think he could play with Hauser, at least in the regular season, like, he's on a minimum contract. Like, I think he'd probably be the best player we could get on a minimum contract, depending how you feel about Saric. He's still like a solid to plus offensive player and is like not good at defense anymore, but he's also not like the worst defender in the league. It blows my mind you wouldn't take him on a minimum.
I was about to say, what happened to this guy? And I remembered he snapped his leg in half.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it for this guy. But even with the Celtics, where he was clearly not the same ever again, he was still like had flashes, like the stretch before he broke his hand against the Spurs, before he hurt his ankle in the bubble. I guess as I'm saying it, that's 5 years ago now. But I wonder, he might be one of the most intriguing like guys in this range, just generally, that I'm like to see what happens, because he, after the OKC situation, was like clearly unhappy that he got pushed out of the rotation. And it's like, dude, you were really bad. Yeah. You anytime you get the ball, you like don't look at the rim. He's got a little Ben Simmons-itis. It's like it feels like he has to be open to shoot it. But again, for a minimum, I think it would be a home run if he's like honest with himself and is like, I don't need playing time. I'm accepting that I have reached this point in my career that I am a veteran minimum guy. I think it's probably more likely he takes a veteran minimum in a place where he thinks he's going to get playing time.
Yeah.
But if he's willing to accept who he is and come be a no shape or set minutes guy, then yeah, I think it is a home run. I'm thinking about the Spider-Man meme though of like Hauser, Baylor Shireman, and Gordon Hayward all pointing at each other, being like, "No, I'm the white guy. I'm the guy that shoots it really well." And I think Hauser's winning that battle at this point pretty easily. But yeah, he would be probably at the top of my list if he's able to accept who he has become from a basketball perspective at this point.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is all relative. Like, I think I would prefer to try, as Karuko TV is calling him here, Baylor, the Shire man, instead of Gordon Hayward. I'd also much prefer O'Shea Brissett come back instead of Hayward as well. So it's all relative. Like we said, it is slim pickings here. So keep that in mind when evaluating these options.
Real quick on Baylor. He is a rookie. He has not played a second in the NBA. He might suck.
I know,
like,
it's so funny. Everyone's like, he's going to be good. So
he might be great. Like, I actually think he's got a pretty high floor. I think he's probably going to be fine. But, like, he could be out of the league in 2 years. He's the 30th pick in the NBA draft.
So could Hayward.
We are a title. Yeah, that's true. But, like, it's a vet minimum. Who gives a shit? Like, okay, we could just cut him. It doesn't matter. Like, if Sam Hauser gets hurt, you're gonna just like, go get him, Baylor. Like, hey, I know you haven't played a second before, but now you're playing 25 minutes a night. Like, that's terrifying to me. At least Gordon Hayward, it's like he's gonna know what to do on an NBA court. So I am not comfortable. I hope Baylor plays well and would steal the job from Gordon Hayward. But what if he doesn't? Then we're in trouble, man.
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. It is funny. Everyone's just like, oh, well, Baylor's going to be good, can be fine. And I kind of agree, but you are right. I was like, how many 30th overall picks have not been good? Pretty much all of them at the same time. So, yeah.
Tristan Vukcevic, anyone? He's let
back.
go. He's been let go by the DC
who?
Wizards.
Okay,
the Wizards.
That's a good sign.
And he was everyone knows, my draft darling last year. Big draft guy over here. Lots of knowledge to share with the people going into the draft. And Tristan Vukcevic, who has subsequently been let go after just 1 year in the NBA post that draft. Not a shining advertisement of my draft knowledge, but he is available and potentially a high upside guy, as you sort of referred to him as in your article, Spoonie, to come in at that fourth, even fifth big spot. And I was shocked to see that his 3-point percentage, because he's meant to be this stretch big, was like sub 30% last year. So not a good sign either, but he is potentially available and probably at very little money for any team who wants him.
I don't have a take on Tristan.
Yeah, that's fair.
He played 10 games, so I wouldn't hold too much with that 27.8%. I will say I checked Reddit on the post where it said they declined his option, and there was a Wizards fan in there who was like, damn, he was really good when he played last year. I really liked him.
There we go.
So we got that going for us. He's got some pedigree, 42nd pick in the draft. And like stretch bigs, like true stretch bigs, are really fucking hard to find. So if you can throw a minimum or even a two-way at this dude and he might blossom into that, it's worth a shout. But really, this was basically just a nod to Ben in the article.
Thank you.
Hell yeah, dude.
Honored.
Yeah, Dominic Barlow was cut
him.
by the Spurs. We were talking about him in the Discord. And Spurs fans, Vicini, I saw, was quite surprised if they could get him. But again, this is coming back to minutes. Anyone that's thinking about this or listening to this who doesn't like any of the names we're talking about, you have to, like, Derrick Jones Jr. and Kelly Oubre were the best minimum signings last year, like pretty easily. Like, why didn't we? And Derrick Jones Jr. was considering the Celtics. It's like, yes, he could have won a title and would have won a title. But also, he's going to now get himself a $12 million contract or more because he went somewhere where he's going to get playing time. And that's the biggest problem for the Celtics with getting guys, is that, like, we can't guarantee you that you're going to be anywhere below the 10th man, really. And that's just a tough sell for any of these guys that are trying to stick in the league and prove that they deserve to stay in the league. But Barlow would be, like, right at the top of the list as well as, like, a legit, like, he'd be like another draft pick, really, that's actually showed promise in the NBA. So that would be huge. I doubt it, but that would be huge.
The Springer for do-up breathe thing is still, of everything we've discussed as far as player acquisition, that's still the one that is the spiciest and stands out the most to me. But there's a lot of names here on this list here, Spoonie and Jake. I'll throw it back out to you guys as well before we wrap up for the night. But any other names stand out to you as possibilities or even probabilities?
I've got just one that I think is super realistic, and we sneaky like, who's our guard behind Peyton Pritchard?
Jordan Walsh, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Baylor Shireman, baby.
And
the Shireman.
So I think Shake Milton can be like
it.
a solid guard. Like he had a horrible year last year, completely horrible, got injured right at the beginning of the season, was just hurt all year. But the year before that on Philly, he shot like 38% from three on decent volume. He's athletic. He's 6'5" with a 7-foot wingspan. Like, if he gets to a functional team that knows how to deploy him and accepts his role as like, I'm the fourth guard, I'm not going to play over Pritchard, I think there's some solid value in Shake. And like he was bad last year. I don't think he's going to have a ton of options. And I think he could see like, look, if Pritchard rolls his ankle, all of a sudden I'm the first guard off the bench, man. Like there's an opportunity for playing time there, and he's big enough that he can play the two as well. So that's kind of my like one I truly think could happen. And I'm a Shake Milton guy. I hate to admit it to myself, but I am. I just think he's better than I think consensus thinks.
Hell yeah. Shout out Oz Celtics fan in the chat. We share a birthday, apparently, July
Sweet.
1st. Happy end of financial year. Get your taxes done. A lot of great end of financial year sales out there. But yeah, shout out to you. I love Shake Milton.
Let's go.
I mean, again, contextualize the love here.
We'll just clip that first bit. Put that out on socials. Jake Eisberg, big Shake guy.
Okay, he's played almost 6,000 NBA minutes and is a 35.8% three-point shooter per 36. He's gotten him up at times throughout his career. Not really, but he's look, man. He would be great as a fourth guard. He would be awesome as a fourth guard. Like,
yeah.
Everyone, like, that's what's great about the Celtics. To your point, Ben, or Spoonie, I think you said that just now. It's like, dude, you're gonna look awesome on the Celtics. If you actually get minutes, dude, you're gonna look awesome. If you have to play 10 games while Pritchard goes down, you're gonna be in such a good context. All you have to do is get the ball to incredible players all across the floor, incredible spacing. You're gonna be taking like the easiest defensive assignments. Like, you have the chance to look really, really good. Jason Tatum, you play with him, you go get paid, dude. Look at Grant Williams, look at Al Horford. Like, the list is like really, really long. Daniel Tice fits into this as well. That should be Brad Stevens' like pitch to any of these guys. Like, look at what happens when you come to the Celtics. One, you win, which is just fun. Great guys, you get paid. What's not to love, dude?
If not Shake, Patty Mills.
Yeah, why
Fourth
not?
guard,
Why the hell
fourth
not?
guard.
Yeah.
He's basically just Pritchard.
That's the thing. Yeah, either of those two guys, it's like that's as good as you could hope for in that fourth guard spot. Just a little bit of talent who can spell guys in the case of an injury or foul trouble or something like that. Like, can you just give us something in spot minutes? And Shake or Patty Mills, I think, fit that slot perfectly. And shout out to Oz Celtics fan in the chat, long-time viewer, long-time listener. Happy birthday to you, mate. And shout out to everyone in the chat, really. We love reading your comments. We see them all. We read them all. It makes doing this show a lot of fun. So shout out to everyone who's joined us. I think we're going to wrap it up there.
Yeah, as I say, I love how much sickos everybody is. Like, we've been talking, we've had like 32 different conversations about Luke Kornet and Xavier Tillman in the Discord, and we're talking about fourth guards. Shout out Nell in the chat being like, we're in a pretty good place if we're like talking about the fourth guard. Yeah,
Yes.
dude, this is the point, man. Our 8-man and now, Luke Kornet being back as well. The rotation is set but that Porzingis thing, that Al Horford being 38 years old. We're trying to like literally win titles. Like, the margins, every little thing matters. And the good thing about being a fan of the Celtics is they value every little thing as well. Yep. So they're going to be grinding.
And they tend to get it right. I've been kind of bummed at how quickly the world has moved on from the Celtics winning the title. I'm like, what, are you kidding? We don't get to just like celebrate this every day for the next like year, essentially, until there's another crowned champion. But I did forget how fun it was to pontificate with you guys and folks in the chat about these 14th, 15th, and two-way spots for the Celtics. So that's been a lot of fun as well. We are going to leave it there. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back throughout the week to discuss all the news that emerges coming out of free agency. We'll, of course, be in Las Vegas for Summer League in just under 2 weeks. So make sure you subscribe to the First to the Floor YouTube channel so you don't miss that coverage. Spoonie, Jake, love your work, guys. Until next time, go Celt.
I love